Seems like what can go wrong will go wrong for the Clippers. Another injury, another possible setback, but hopefully not too much of a setback. But let's talk about it. I've said all year this team suffers from a lot of injuries that prevents them from being the team that they could be, being the team that could help them get, over the hump and get to a finals and possibly win a finals. It's been like that the last couple years. And, that's something that's going to hinder them going forward if they don't find a way to, do their best to stay healthy. Of course, you can't help injuries. They happen. I understand that. But, the best thing you could do is take care of your body as best as you can and, take care of yourself as best as you can in regards to when you're on the floor. And like I said, things are going to happen. Injuries happen. You can't prevent them. But it just seems like they happen to this team more so than any other team, or at least it just seems that way because, this is one of the teams I pay attention to the most. So, it's like it just seems like the injury bug hits the Clippers more than it hits any other team. It just feels that way. But, looking at the Paul George situation, what I'm talking about, Paul George had the elbow injury. He took a few games off about a week or two ago because of the elbow injury. And to me, he tried to play through it and he got hit on it a few times, a few bumps and bruises on it, extra more than what it already was by playing on it. And I feel like he either re-aggravated it or maybe now it's worse. And the timetable is 3-4 weeks before they reevaluate Paul George from the elbow injury that he sustained. And to me, that's just bad news for Clippers fans because, right now you're in the thick of things. You're like 1 or 2 games above 500 and, you're like in a 6 or 7 seed. And like I said, that's only 2 or 3 slots away from being in the 9th seed, which is like 1 or 2 games apart. And that's just not where the Clippers envision themselves being. And of course, you have to look at it like this. I mean, it's not where the Clippers want to be right now, because if you look at it, I mean, them being healthy is what everybody wants to see anyway. Them 100% at full strength, like what this team could be like. And it's really hard for us to envision what this team could be like because we never seen all of them on the floor at the same time. And it just doesn't, it's not right. It's something you want to see as an NBA fan, whether you're a Clippers fan or not, you just want to see everybody healthy and everybody play. And you want to have everybody playing so everybody can have the opportunity to see who's really the best team. It's like you'll never know who the best teams are or the best players when there's always one nicked or hurt or injured, not there, not present, not available, COVID issues. It's always something, and it's the one thing I always say I hated about sports. I love sports to death, but the biggest Achilles heel I have about sports, or the biggest hatred for sports, is injuries. I just wish everybody could stay healthy, but of course that's not the notion. Of course that's not how reality is. I just hate it, but I mean, hey, it is what it is, But I mean, it's definitely bad news for Clippers fans because, as I said, you're trying to stay afloat, in the playoff hunt, the playoff, seedings. And without Paul George for 3 or 4 weeks, maybe even a little bit longer, the Clippers could find themselves out of the playoffs because the schedule is going to get tougher going here forward. It's not going to get easier. I mean, you got the Nuggets, you got the Nets twice, you got the Lakers coming up again, you got the Phoenix Suns, you got the Warriors in there, you got a team like Toronto in there, which is not that bad of a challenge, but at the same time, they still got more talent or more of a superstar player on their squad than you do because you don't have Paul George now. You already was missing Kawhi Leonard. He was already out for all this season predominantly. Don't know when you're going to get him back. So it's like, and you're trying to keep up with the playoff seedings now. The one thing for the Clippers, they don't want to fall too far out or too far behind. Hopefully they can get a few victories in here and kind of stay afloat and maybe let Paul George rest the arm a little bit more, but it's no guarantee because they were losing games with Paul George being there, and it's just, a really hard task to ask from a bunch of young players who really don't know the game. And then the older players like Marcus Morris and Serge Ibaka, they're injury prone themselves. So it's like, you're asking a lot from, a team that doesn't have much veteran leadership when they're predominantly a young team. So, I mean, it's a lot for the Clippers to overcome. I mean, and then on top of that, even, they do have veteran leadership. I mean, I'm not going to say they don't have any, but they do. But they're predominantly a young team with all the young star talent they have on there. And without Kawhi and PG, the offense, the rotations, the lineups, I mean, unless they go into these games and other teams don't take them seriously and they can eke out some wins and get a few game winning streak going on or something like that, that might be about the only way. Because honestly, like I said, you can't lose that type of talent, that type of, efficiency in a Kawhi Leonard, that type of scoring ability, in Kawhi Leonard and in Paul George, and expect to be a formidable team going against very, very harder competition than what you had in the favorable schedule that you had earlier in the season. I mean, it's just hard. It's just very, very difficult to do. And I'm not saying the Clippers can't do it, but I'm just saying it's going to be a hard task. And I just hope that they can find a way to stay afloat, with the guys they do have. But like I said, when you're playing teams that's more at full strength than you are, and you're missing your two top players and your two top defensive players at that, I mean, it's just very, very hard to act. So if the Clippers in their next 7 games, if they go 2-5 or 3-4 or something like that, I mean, that's actually good if they can do that, honestly, because what's expected of them now is not much. Well, if they're going to be without PG for 3-4 weeks, that's a lot of games they're going to play without that type of firepower. And, Kawhi Leonard's not there either. So, I mean, you're you're asking for a lot of bad things to happen, but hoping for a lot of good things to come. You see what I'm saying? So it's just one of those type situations. The Clippers definitely, I feel like, if they're as resilient as I've always said they are, well, this is the time they need to show it, because they're going to have to show a lot of resiliency, a lot of fight, a lot of toughness, a lot of everything, because without Paul George there and Kawhi Leonard, you're asking a lot from the older veteran players you do have. You're asking more out of them, and they're also injury prone. So it's like, and then you got a bunch of young players who come in there trying to just make a name for themselves rather than, be 100% by the book, 100% play by the book. They're not at that stage yet. That's why they're younger players. They have to develop and get there. So you're trying to do all that while you're trying to win and stay in the playoff hunt or the playoff seeding. It's going to be very tough for Ty Lue to do. Hopefully he can find a way, because this is definitely bad news for the Clippers. I mean, without Kawhi and PG for any substantial amount of time, is never good. Even if it's 1 week, that can change a lot, because the 6th seed all the way to the 8th seed, which is not far at all, is like 1 game apart, maybe 2 games. So if Paul George is out for 2-3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks, you can be the 10th or 12th seed by then. And trying to get him to come back and play to the level he was just automatically as soon as he steps into the lineup, that's hard to ask somebody to do sometimes, because it's just so much that can go into that. And then, like I said, when you get injuries, you're never really 100% coming back. You're like 90, 88%. It takes you about a year sometime to really get your feet back to how you were the following season. You know what I'm saying? You're just coming back this season just to try to help your team. But, I mean, like I said, any substantial amount of time missing 2 players like that is going to hurt this team. And like I said, hopefully, maybe after the 5 or 6 games, maybe their schedule will get a little bit lighter. So if their schedule will get lighter, maybe they can pull out, a few wins to kind of at least maybe stay afloat a little bit more and, keep it going like that. Of course, we're going to talk about the Clippers going forward. I definitely want to, keep in touch with them, keep things on the up and up with them as far as like the information and everything like that. But man, it just seems like the injury bug bites this team more than any other team. And that could just be me. I could just be thinking that or biased about this, but that's just how I feel, and it really, really bothers me, because I really want to see this team 100% on the floor together, and I want to see what they look like all together. I mean, we never seen all these guys together for a substantial amount of time to figure out how good they could be, because they're already a deep team without Serge Ibaka. When Serge Ibaka wasn't playing last year, they're already a deep team even without Kawhi Leonard. They're already a deep team without Paul George. But it's like when you take these pieces away at unopportune times when they really need to make a run, it's gonna make them look not as good as they could be, because they're missing they got players missing in action. And that just hurts the team over time. I mean, a team could be as resilient as they want to be. They could be as strong-minded as they want to be. But pride and all that stuff is good, but at the same time, or bad, whatever you think about it. But it's not going to work when you don't have the talent and the pieces that can go out there and help deliver. And like I said, missing Kawhi and PG, you can't miss them for 1 or 2 weeks, let alone 3-4 weeks or more. Not both of them. You got to at least have one. The first year, Kawhi Leonard was predominantly out there by himself. Paul George was suffering from a shoulder injury, I think, so he didn't play a lot of that season. This year, is predominantly now Kawhi, and now PG is in there. Now he's got an elbow injury that's worse than what a lot of people thought it was before, because he had came back a few games ago and he just re-aggravated it basically. So it's like, man, it's like, is this team ever going to catch a break or no? But we're just going to have to see how it goes. Hopefully they can manage and keep things going afloat, keep the train going, and, try to win as much as they can. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the only thing they can do at this point, because it just doesn't seem like, there's light at the end of the tunnel, or it doesn't seem like, the days on their calendar are getting brighter. It just seems like, man, they got one thing hit them right after another. And it's like, I know it's getting old to them as an organization, but what can they do? Injuries happen, and there's nothing you can do about that. You just hope that, Paul George can come back and, be the way he's supposed to and kind of help lead the team as much as he can, keep them afloat, and hope that Kawhi Leonard comes back the same way. Because, that's the only way it's going to work. Without them two, the operation is trashed. The operation is over with. The operation is not going to work. They'll still be a decent team, but the Clippers are expected to win a championship. They're not expected to just make the playoffs. And with that notion and that bounty on their head, they have to find a way to deliver. And the only way they're going to do that is if to be healthy. And so, it sucks, but at the same time, hey, it's never good for any of your players to go down, but especially the ones that actually keep the team afloat and the ones that are actually doing the boatload of the work. Because like I said, 3-4 weeks without Paul George is going to be a lifetime for the Clippers if they don't find a way to win some of these games. And they're going to have to win some big ones too. So, we'll see how it goes with them. We'll see how everything pans out. They got a big one today against the Nuggets. I feel like they could beat them, possibly. But, hey, the Clippers, even with Paul George, sometime we've seen them play down the competition that they should have beat, like the other night against the Spurs. Spurs are, not a winning organization right now. I think they're 12 or 13 and 18 or something like that. They're not playing winning basketball. They have their moments of playing good, but they're not really a good team. They don't even have a superstar. So, a team like that, you got to find a way to beat them. And that's just the way it is, and they've had some questionable losses with Paul George this year. So ask them to go out there and do extra without him. It's going to be tough, but we just have to see how it goes and see how it pans out. So, hey, that's my take on the situation. You leave any comments in the comment section as always. We'll talk about it. And, hey, Khaliis out.